Hello once again and good morning, everyone. I want to take this opportunity to welcome you once again to our today's webinar. We'll be tackling data protection part 2. And last week we had our guest speaker, Advocate Agnes Kionga from NKM Advocates, just introducing to us on what data protection entails, of course, in line with the managing schools and in line with also dealing with the key major subjects when it comes to data protection. That is the minor, the staff we have, that is the teachers and also the parents. So today she'll be taking us through part 2 of the same, where we'll also continue learning on how important it is for us to take matters data protection seriously as school proprietors, and also in line with managing school, and also in line with the assurance that we are compliant with what the Office of Data Protection requires of us. So without any further ado, and with that brief introduction, Agnes, if I may just mention, Agnes is an advocate of the High Court. Over and above, she's also available for consultancy in matters data protection and any legal matters in line with the schools and in line with us as SMEs, and also in line with just managing overall legal matters of our school. So over and above, as we just listened to her today, I just want to let you know that she's available for any kind of consultancy when it comes to legal matters. And after this, we'll also be taking questions if you want any clarification in line with data protection or anywhere you have not probably understood. As she proceeds with the training, she will always be available to take any questions after the webinar. And now, without any further ado, I want to take this opportunity to officially welcome our advocate, Agnes Kionga, to take us through the data protection training. Karibu sana, Agnes.
Thank you so much, Betty. We thank you once again for joining us today. For those who are not with us last time, my name is Agnes. I run a law firm in the name of NKM Advocates, as Betty has stated. And today, because we say data protection is very wide, I want us to go very fast. We'll first do a recap of what we did last week. Then from there, we can be able to look at registration and the process. And today I want us to look specifically at 3 case studies of schools for matters that have been passed by the Office of the Data Protection Commissioner, because that one you'll be a bit familiar with, and you'll be able to identify where you fall, and you'll be able to understand where you need to register. Let me share my screen.
Agnes, just as a disclaimer, allow me to just notify our audience that the webinar is being recorded, and the same will also be shared in our social media pages, including YouTube, our LinkedIn, and our Facebook, for any person within the education community who would want to just benefit from our today's training. So this is just to let you know that we are recording this webinar, and the same will be available in our social media pages, and will also be shared to our school owners or school directors. Thank you. Over and above also, if you know anyone within the education community who will benefit from today's webinar, I'll urge you, please share the link with them so that they join, and so that you can also learn together. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Betty. That is still part of data protection, where you're notified earlier. You remember last week we said you have the right to information. So you've just been notified by Betty that you're being recorded. And that's one of whatever is required by the Office of the ODPC. Briefly, we looked at the data protection introduction. It came into being in 2019. And from that 2019, every institution is required to register. We'll be looking at all institutions that are required to register in our next slide, in our next PowerPoint. This is just briefly to recap what we did last. Said that data subjects have rights. They have the right to information, access to the personal data that are being held about them. They have a right to object to any data that the institution holding has about them. They have a right to correct any data in any institution. They have a right to require their data to be deleted if it's misleading. They also have a right to oppose. That is now the right to object. We had said that and we have principles of data protection. We said there is privacy. Data that is collected should be kept privately, that without unlawful access, or it should not just be accessed by anyone. It should be private. They should be fair and lawful. The data that you hold, like let's say we say the birth certificate of those kids, because of the name is number, that is lawful for you to have that kind of data. Then you need to have a specified purpose of why you're processing that data. And you only collect the data that you need. You don't go overboard and collect information that you don't need. And you need to explain to the data subject the reason you're collecting that data. It needs to be accurate. And also, you need to know how long are you going to keep this data after the purpose of which it was meant to be no longer exists. And do you transfer data out of Kenya? Is the jurisdiction you're transferring data to outside Kenya? Do they have data protection policies, privacy policies in place, or are they registered? We look at that case study, and we looked at what the kind of data collected by schools, for pupils, for staff, for volunteers, for directors, their name, their date of birth, their bank details. Sometimes for maybe where when you're paying your staff, you pay through their bank account, their next of kin, their photos. Sometimes you take ethnicity or religion, because some religions don't take specific kind of maybe meals. You need to know probably that religion, or maybe yours is purely a Christian institution or a Muslim institution. You'll not take in a Christian when it's purely Muslim, because they will be able to learn whatever Muslims learn. Or you'll not be able to take a Muslim in a Christian school, because your learning is carved upon maybe Christian ethics. So sometimes you take such kind of special data, and that is very sensitive data. You take data that is of health, maybe for specific of those who take special meals. And then maybe your staff are in have a trade union. You take that kind of data, which is sensitive. We looked at the legal basis of processing data, because maybe of a contract of employment. You need for these students to be registered by the government, for NEMIS, for exams. We looked at maybe public interest, the vital interest. We'll be looking at case laws that will now come into place for you to be able to see all these things. We said that any data you collect, either for students or for parents or for staff, needs consent, which needs to be specific, and that consent can be withdrawn anytime. Then we looked at the responsibilities of staff members. What do they do? The do's and the don'ts of staff members when it comes to data protection. They need to remember they're responsible for keeping and processing data safe. They need to make themselves aware of the categories of data they process. They need to know which data requires consent. They need to comply with the policies of the school on data protection, on data collection. They need to take care even when using emails. Instead of using a tool and then you use CC, you can blind copy, that is BCC, so that information of other parents or other emails of parents are not received by other parents. The don'ts of staff, we said they don't use photos unless consent is given. Information about parents or pupils to others, unless they have a legal basis, they don't collect such information. They should not access personal information on phones or on laptops unless they are appropriately protected. They should never share passwords, and they should never ignore data breaches. We say the kind of breaches a school may encounter, it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when that breach occurs. Maybe when sending emails, you use the CC, so personal emails of parents were collected by other parents. They sent the email of a child, the email about a child to the wrong recipient. They sent a letter to the wrong person. The physical files were left unsecured, maybe on top of desks of the staff room. And then sometimes when you redact data, you see this, there are four corners that have like a black thing. That is how you redact something. So you cannot be able to know the information that was there before. So we said if data is breached, you need to notify the data subject and the commissioner. You need to investigate where that data, how that leaked, and then you need to come up with a remedy of to make sure that the Nini does not happen again, that breach, and then you document for future purposes. And then the core documents we said for schools is there are privacy notices on your website. You need consent forms in case you need to show the office of the ODPC that you did this. And then you need to record any processing activities, data audit, what are your processing limits and what are the procedures. So that was what we did last week. So today, briefly, let me go to my other slide now for today. In case you have questions on that, on the first slide, you can be able to be putting them on the Q&A and the chat box, or even at the end of this presentation. I will directly go to our second slide. That was part 1, sorry. Let me just find it, part 2. There was a question last time on registration. You were asking, as schools, do we need to register? That is what we are going to do today. Why registration is required, even for schools. Before I go why registration is required, I need to show you. These are lifted specifically from the website of the ODPC. There are people who are not exempt from registration. You can see all the others, but where I have highlighted in black is provision of education. These are mandatory institutions that are required to register by the office of the ODPC. You can see if you're providing education, you are required.
Agnes, we can't see the content, exact content you're presenting on. What you're seeing, we just in your folder.
Oh, you're still seeing my folder?
Yes.
Okay, sorry. Let me go back. Let me stop sharing. Stop share. Part 2. And now can you see anything?
Yes, but I guess you've also stopped sharing.
Participants. I was talking about, someone asked last time whether they have to register as schools. And I was saying this was lifted from the website of the ODPC to show the institutions that need mandatory to register. And you've seen I've highlighted in bold, provision of education is part of it. So if you're providing education, you're not exempt in any way from registration. And from the case laws that I'll be able to present, laws of schools or in the education sector, and the decision was asking them. So if you are going to look at this, you are able to see that you need to register as an education sector. And this takes us to where you need to register. Why does the ODPC require the schools to register? It's an element of compliance. Even individuals collecting data, some of them are required to register. So, and it ensures transparency in the processing of data. And because of the new technologies, you'd all bear me witness, some years, like 10 years ago, the technology we have was never even, you could never dream of having the kind of technology that now exists, from TikToks to Snapchats to Instagram. There are so many, and people are sharing data right, left, and center. And like we would say, EdPartners is in all social media sites. They are on YouTube, Instagram, you have LinkedIn. You can find information in all these. If someone is not found in Instagram, you'll find them on LinkedIn, you'll find them on maybe Snapchat or TikTok. TikTok has become very famous in Kenya nowadays. This is the new technology. So it is essential for for some of these social media sites to be regulated, because they're sharing a lot of data concerning maybe minors, parents, or every individual. You'll find yourself, as long as you have an account, your information is outside there. So it's an additional tool to promote data protection and compliance, and to regulate and minimize any harm that might come to a data subject. So you've seen you're necessarily required to register. There is a process that is given on how you can register your institution. If you go to that website that I've provided there, this PowerPoint I'll share with Ed Partners, you'll be able to find it so they can share on your emails. If you go to that website, there's a way you are guided on how to register. And as you're registering, there's some information you need to provide to the ODPC. And once the commissioner is satisfied that the information you've provided is okay, you can get your certificate within 14 days. And you have to renew this certificate after every 2 years. And the amounts depend. The amounts that you're charged depend on the number of students you have. Those are the data subjects, or the revenue you make in a year. Those are things that can probably be, if you have a question on that, we can discuss on that later. Requirements for registration. If you want to register, you need an establishment document. How are you registered as a school? That registration document that you hold, I was saying that there was another training on succession planning, and the lawyer was able to take you through the various ways. You can either be sole proprietorship, or you can either be partnership. She took you all through that. Those are your establishment documents. The name and the contact details of the school, the description and purposes of the kind of data you process. You need to describe the data processed. What kind of data do you take? Is it the name, the address, the ID, that is the birth certificate number? And you need to describe your data subjects. Are they your staff, your employees, your directors? Are they your suppliers, your directors, your shareholders, your service providers? And who do you disclose this kind of data to? Do you give this data to KRA, to CBK, to the Ministry of Education? You need to describe the kind of people you share this data with. What is your turnover as an institution, as a school? Have you put measures in place by maybe of the security? How secure is your data? Do you have, in case there is unauthorized access of your data, do you have measures to safeguard? The way you have maybe Kaspersky, it's an antivirus, whatever, those protection, those kind of IT protection that you need to put in place in case someone tries to collect your data. What safeguards and security measures do you have? Do you have a visitor's logbook? When people are coming into the gate, are they recorded? And the kind of data you record at the gate, what do you do with it? Can you be able to identify every person walking in and out of school in case that is requested? So I would like, as I share my next, I want us to share that, to share the Aga Khan Education Service case law. I need us to look at it, and from there, you need to know where you are as a school. Then we look at Olerai Schools Limited. These are all case laws. I know the famous we know is the Roma Schools, but let's start with the education, the Aga Khan Education Service. In the meantime, as I try to share that case law, if you have a question, you can be asking.
I'm seeing a hand raised. Bernard, yes, Bernard, you can ask your question.
Betty, can you see my screen?
Yes, I can see your screen, but you can still see folders.
No, not the case law. Okay.
Yes.
And Education Service. This is a case law between Stephen Shibweche and Aga Khan Education Service. those I'll leave the introductions. Those one you can read later. We'll share this case laws with you. I'm taking you to the nature of the complaint. On the 22nd June, there was a complaint that was given by the respondent, that is Stephen, and an investigation was conducted by the ODPC. Now we look at the nature of the complaint. The complaint relates to a lawful and permitted circumstance for processing personal data. The complainant alleges that the respondent, who is the school education, Aga Khan Education Service, his former employer, shared his personal data with another entity. This was a teacher and was transferred, resigned to go to another school. And the new employer, without the complainant's consent, that is the teacher, terminated his contract with the respondent, former employer, and had moved to another school. He was still under probation, and the new employer was conducting a background reference check on the teacher. In conducting the background check, the employer wrote to the respondent, that is the former school, that is the Aga Khan Education Service, inquiring about the complainant's performance and validity and authenticity of the payslip. We say the payslip is sensitive information. The complainant had adduced with his new employer as evidence of the salary which he was receiving from the respondent and the complainant's former employee. So this is how Aga Khan Education Service responded to the complaint. The response to the complaint was made, and an investigation was done. And the respondent stated that the complainant was employed by the respondent on 2nd January 2020 as a mathematics teacher and physics teacher for a period of 2 years, ending 31st December 2021. And upon expiry of his contract was renewed for another 2 years and expired on that, was to expire on 31st December 2023. He, however, resigned by his own volition on 2nd June 2022 and served the required 3 months notice until 2nd September 2022. You'll see that case is very recent. So the respondent stated on the 27th of December and requesting reference checks for the individuals, one being the complainant and the human resource manager of Premier Academy. Probably you know that school. And that's the school that had employed the new teacher. And they said, when looking at the record of the personnel, that is the teacher, the complainant was a committed employee whose performance was good and that he left after serving notice. But later, the HR stated the payslip the teacher had given to the new school was not accurate. It had some errors. And that is what maybe made now the teacher to be sacked in the other school. In response to the details of how the respondent collected, stored, and processed the complainant's data, the respondent responded that the information pertaining to the complainant is contained in his employee's file, which contains, among other records, the contract of employment and payslips, that the personal files are stored at the HR office and the head office in Nairobi in a lockable metal cabinet. You see now that is security of the data. How do you secure your data? How safe is your data? What are your security measures? That the information is also contained in PeopleSoft software. So the school had a software of where they stored all their data. The respondent stated that access to personal files is restricted to HR staff only. Now they are responding to the ODPC. The staff may access their respective file in the presence of unauthorized HR personnel, and access to the software is restricted to HE and payroll personnel on role-based access, and they are protected with a password. You see now they are able to show they have a process of how their data is secure and how access is, how you can access probably your data if you want to access. So the data is not open to everyone to see. The respondent stated that the payment information was used to process the complainant's monthly salary, terminal dues in performance of the contract, and they had to give the mandatory deductions, the PAYE, the NSSF, and the NHIF. That is the people they shared the data of the employee with. And that the information related to the cost of professional development course was collected from Cambridge International and is stored in electronic communications. On the legal basis, you remember the legal basis in our previous discussion, they relied upon the complainants whether how to fulfill the duty to notify under Section 29. How did they notify the data subject of how the information was shared? And they adduced that the respondent stated that the processing was done in accordance with the employee's privacy notice. That is a document that every school needs to have, a privacy notice, which was executed by the complainant when he was still in employment by the respondent. The respondent also stated that and adduced evidence that before signing the privacy notice, the complainant attended a data protection awareness training. So that is how they were able to defend themselves. So upon the request and the background reference by another school, the respondent stated that the request received by the respondent for the background and reference check, it was not unusual that during the recruitment process in any organization, applicants are required to submit various documents, including their CVs, which contain, among other things, their work history and reference information. This information is verified through background and reference checks. So I'll not read all of it. And you see now, I'll tell you the determination of the ODPC. The ODPC asked 3 questions that is customarily to respond to such requests subject to the following. 1, the request is handled in a designated manner. Any information that is provided is correct, and disclosure is premised on an undertaking and a promise of confidentiality. So you see how they were favored in analyzing. The issue for determination was whether the complainant personal information was processed in accordance to the law. And you will find later that after citing all the laws that are in place, was the information lawfully processed in a yes, a data controller and processor shall not process personal data unless the data subject consents, which you find the teacher had consented and even had undergone training. The processing is necessary. It was processing for the performance of his employment contract, and you read all the others, and further processing of personal data shall be in accordance with the purpose of collection. A data controller who contravenes the provision of subsection 1 commits an offense. So they wanted to see, had Aga Khan Education Service committed an offense. They were later they determined later, let me show you the determination of the ODP, the final determination. In the ultimate, the data commissioner therefore makes the following final determination. The complainant lacks merit and such is dismissed. Parties have the rights to appeal. So they found that the respondent, that is the teacher, no, not the respondent, the education service had done their due diligence and had shared their data in accordance with the Data Protection Act. And that's how education policy was able to escape the penalties and those damages that are usually paid to the complainants. So that is how they were let go. From that case law, you realize that they had processes in place, they had their data protection policies, their privacy notices, and they even took their staff through the required training. So any thing the staff was signing, it was recorded, and they had signed against whatever. They were trained and they signed a privacy notice, and you can see how their data was kept safe, secure. So if the ODPC comes to your school, ask yourself, how secure is your data? Do you have a process in place that this information can only be accessed by so-and-so, there are passwords in place, and sometimes they come to audit. Will you be able to show them that we have done it right? This is how we do our thing. If you go to Olerai School, this is Edith Andeso and Olerai School Limited. I said I'll share these case laws. This was a teacher employed in Olerai School. I'll not read that case law because I've seen those terms sometimes are heavy. The teacher was employed, and she was put on a billboard. You see these billboards that schools are putting up on advertising the school. The teacher was part of that billboard and the students. And she was later dismissed. And when she was dismissed, she went and sued the school that they used her photo without consent on the billboards. And the head teacher of that school was able to respond, Olerai School, that when we were doing all this, when we were taking photographs, and even we were taking photographs of the students, we categorically, this is the teacher that was in charge of the process. We asked her to ensure that all parents had consented, and we gave her consent forms. And she was required to give every other student in her class, the students whose photographs were taken, that they go and give their parents to sign. And she's the one who collected all those consents signed by guardians. And in addition, this teacher had two kids in that school. The two kids were part of the people that were given consent form to take to their parents. She signed for her kids plus the husband. So they were asking that, they were saying from the first time we started this process, she was part of it. She also signed for even her two children that were in the school. So she cannot later go and claim, after being let go, that she did not give consent to her image being put on that billboard. And that is how the school was able to get away with that determination. They were favored by the Office of the Data Protection. You'll see that the Office of the ODPC, they are very logical. If you have put measures in place, and from the word go, they say this teacher was part of it. So at any part of the process, she could have said, no, I don't want my photo to be up there. She later claimed that she did not want to object because she had a right to objection, because she was still a teacher and she knew maybe probably if she objected, she would be sacked. But she was told that's not an excuse, because at the very point, you are part of this process from the beginning. So at any point of this process, you would have said, I'm not comfortable with my image being up there. And so you see, that is how they were able to escape, and the matter was dismissed. Although they were given, you can either appeal to the High Court in case you are not comfortable with the decision that was made. That is now for Olerai schools. So you'll be able to see, we have made Roma schools so famous. We are unable to see that there are two favors still in, we have two determination in favor of schools, that is Aga Khan and Olerai schools. So when we come to Roma schools, this is why where you find this case law was specifically for the complainant. Actually, the complainant was a parent who didn't want to be named. And through their WhatsApp group, their school WhatsApp group, they were told by the school that we are going to take the images of your children and we are going to advertise through TikTok. So the complainant, if you look at the nature of the complaint, the complainant wanted to know, are you registered with the office? This one I can read so that specifically you know the matters behind them being fined that much. The complainant alleged that the respondent sought to process images of minors on their social media platforms, particularly TikTok, without the express consent of the parents and guardians. The category of personal data that was intended to be processed by the respondent relating to the minors was for marketing purposes. Being a parent at the respondent school, the complainant stated that she requested for measures that the respondent would take to ensure processing of minors' personal data would be done in accordance with the law, and such measures were not provided, hence lodging this complaint. So this parent went to the school first. If you're going to process the images of our minors, are you doing it lawfully? Is there a lawful basis for you doing this? And the complainant's evidence, she sought the following reliefs: copies of the school certificate of authorization from the Office of the ODPC, that is what she requested from the school, copies of the school data protection policy, and an acknowledgement that the school had read and understood TikTok's privacy policy. You see, in every social media platform, like if you go to Google, there is a privacy policy for you to use their Gmail account. If you go to any other social media, there is always a privacy policy where you're told, if you agree with all this, tick this box. So we all tick those boxes without reading what the boxes contain, the privacy notice. So she wanted the school to provide this evidence. They had read TikTok's privacy policy and they had copies of the school, the data protection policy. And upon notification of the complaint to the respondent, they replied via email on 6 July 2023, denying the allegation and requested that the complainant provide more details on the allegations made, particularly her full name, contact name of her child, her class, and the data alleged to be shared. So you'll not go into all that, whether she was shared. She just took a screenshot of the communication she did to the school. And the school had done to them as parents, the WhatsApp group. So you need to be very careful on what you post on those WhatsApp group, telling parents 1 or 2, 3. You need to ask yourself, can this information be used against the school if this is said? If a parent requests something, how are we going to respond? So then even the WhatsApp communication with parents needs to be very guarded, because taking a screenshot and presenting it as evidence is now what was happening in this case. So what the ODPC asked the school, they received the complaint. I'll not tell you how they the ODPC requested the school to show that were they registered with the office of the ODPC as data controllers? Did they have the policies in place? And were they in breach of what measures had they taken in sharing those minors' details on TikTok? And you'll find that this is where you will find the determination was made against them. In consideration of all the facts of the complaint, the responses tendered and the investigation conducted, the Data Commissioner makes the following determination. The respondent is hereby and fully liable on multiple violations of Section 9, 25, 26, all those sections of the Act. An enforcement notice was issued against them because of the breach they had done, and they were told parties have a right to appeal. That is when they were fined the 4.5 million by the office, because a parent requested for information, the parent was not given, and going to their TikTok pages, you could see the photos of minors, and you see now a parent had raised this issue in the first place. So as a school, you need to ask yourself, when a parent requests for information, because we are living in an era where everyone, especially in urban areas where people are aware of this act, they will request or they will leave you to do what you are doing and then sue you later if an information, either of the information leaks or of their minors. It is very important for you to be at par with the ministry, with the ODPC, because we have seen from the previous 2 cases that if you are compliant, they tend to favor you. It's because Roma School was very arrogant to this parent that they had to be fined such amounts. And even when the ODPC went to their TikTok pages, they found that it is really true. They have been doing this for so long, and you see they hadn't registered with them. And they had not sought for any advice. And when they were told to respond, their response was very arrogant. You read the case law and you see how arrogant they were in their response to the ODPC. So if you're able to show that we have measures in place, our files are secure, our processing is safe, this is how we process our information, this is how we secure information. If our parent requests for data, this is how we give our information. Our staff are aware of this and they have been taught how to handle this information. You are on the safe side, like the Aga Khan Education Service and Olerai schools, that once a person is informed from the word go, this is how our information is being processed, then you're good to go. And at least a decision can be made in your favor in case even staff sues you. The previous case that we read, the Aga Khan Education, it was a teacher who sued the school. So you see, even your teachers, even if you have teachers in your schools, they also, once they are sacked, they have information regarding that school. They already know what you're compliant with and what you are not. And if it regards them, they will go to the office and maybe report you that you're not 1, 2, 3, you're not compliant with 1, 2, 3, this is what you've been doing behind the scenes. And as long as a teacher is employed by you, probably you're safe. But when that teacher leaves, maybe you let that person go. You see, they go behind and they sue you. Because the Aga Khan Education Service and Olerai schools, those 2 are school teachers. And those, I think they were doing it in Mali, but the first one, Aga Khan, the person had forged a payslip. And then that payslip was, when the background check was done, they were told the payslip is not genuine. So that's why he sued. And the other one sued because she was sacked and her image was on the billboard. So ensure you have consents for all this, and everyone is involved from the word go. You have the right consents in place, and you have the necessary policies, your data protection policy, your privacy notices, and your teachers need to be aware of that. You can go to that website and you can, it is an easy, I'll not say it's an easy process, because of the information that you require to fill. But if you just follow that site, there is a way probably you'll be able to go maybe step by step and try and register. You can get more information on the website of the ODPC. Although their information is like booklets, they are huge. You have to read through all those requirements. And Betty, I think for now, I am done. I would invite questions to be in place, but though I can see a question on the Q&A. Oh, no, it's not a question. No, I don't know how I muted my sound. Okay. So any questions, we would welcome questions. And Betty, welcome back. And thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Agnes. That was very insightful, and based on the fact that you have also used case study, first-hand experience from some of these schools or learning institutions that have gone through some litigation process in as far as data protection is concerned. I would love to take this opportunity just to invite any questions or any query. If you have a question, you can either use our Q&A, our chat box, or just raise your hand and I'll give you access to maybe ask your question. Any question? Okay, it seems there's none. Agnes, probably, how do we reach you in case we want to just have some consultancy with your firm or with yourself?
Betty, I'll share my information, my contact details with you. You can be able to share. If you have anything that you'd like to ask or even consult, we can go through EdPartners and we will be able to help you because they will communicate. I'll share my details with you for that.
Okay. Okay.
Yes.
So once again, thank you so much. And to all attendees, our school directors, I want to take this opportunity once again to just appreciate you for taking your time or setting some time aside just to join this webinar. And I'm hoping that this webinar has been informative. We'll do an impact assessment survey with all attendees who have attended this webinar, and probably we'll also ask for feedback on how we can make it better or how we can continue improving on such kind of webinars. Over and above, once we share the video or the recordings with you, please also share with other school owners so that they may learn and they may also find ways of just being compliant as a school, and also protecting themselves against such kind of litigation that can be very financially heavy or financially draining for the schools. And to give my closing remarks, yes, data protection is very serious, and especially data protection to the various subjects as minors and also teachers or employees is very key. So I'll urge you all to take this matter seriously, ensure that you're compliant in as far as matters to do with Office of the Data Protection is concerned. Ensure that you have all policies in place to just safeguard your school and also safeguard the minors. And over and above, as EdPartners, we are always here, not necessarily to offer financial services or impact you financially, but also build capacity in as far as such kind of advisory is concerned, so that you're able to run your school smoothly without any kind of hitches or any kind of havoc that might end up causing litigation problems to your school. So over and above, in case of any query, in case of any question, I'll avail also my email address and my number, and you can also come through you can also go through your RM, your relationship manager, and we'll always advise you or we'll always work with you in whatever journey that you have with your school. Otherwise, thank you so much, and I want to take this opportunity to just wish you a good weekend, and also to just wish you a good afternoon. Thank you.